The Scottish Social Attitude Survey has been recording the views of the Scottish people since devolution in 1999. The survey literally makes the headlines from the tabloids to the broadsheets. Peter McMahon is Deputy Editor at The Scotsman.
Well, one story that we did, which I thought was particularly interesting, was the SSA survey into how left-wing people in Scotland are, and they compared it to the UK as a whole and people south of the border. And it turns out that Scots are a little bit more social democratic, a little bit more left-wing than their fellow countrymen south of the border, but not perhaps as much as Scots like to think they are. And it's something that I find I use quite a lot if I'm on television or if I'm writing a column or if we're doing leaders, that it just explains something. It actually helps to look at something that's almost a myth and explain through sound research what the position really is. The independence debate is the biggest question that Scotland faces for more than 300 years. It's absolutely vital that we have objective information that helps inform the debate, and the kind of information that comes from these surveys and the way it's produced and the insight it gives is absolutely vital for us to help explain to the readers what's going on.
Garth Reid, Public Health Advisor for NHS Health Scotland, is a regular user of survey data.
We use public attitudes to assess policy. We want to know whether policies have made a difference, have they worked? What the public thinks about a policy or a project or a service can dictate how successful it will ultimately be. For example, before the smoking ban was implemented in Scotland, there was a negative perception of it. People thought that the smoking ban wouldn't work. But then after it came into place, and people saw how nice it was to be able to go out into public spaces and not be exposed to secondhand smoke, they became much more positive about the policy and supported it. And that was a surprise. In fact, even smokers started supporting the policy. And being able to evaluate that and assess that is really crucial. There's lots of things we could look at in the future. For example, we've got a problem with obesity. There's an obesity epidemic in Scotland. So what are we going to do about that is really the question. One of the things we could do is we could increase the tax on fats and saturated fat in products or on sugar in products as well. But what we don't know is what the public think of that sort of measure. Is it something which would be acceptable and might make a difference, or is it something which would be totally unacceptable to them?
Professor Lindsay Patterson of Edinburgh University has been a collaborator on SSA on many different topics since the survey began.
It's important because it helps us to understand how policies coming from government and from parliaments are having their effect on society. In a democracy, politicians need to know what the public thinks in order to be able to decide whether they are accurately reflecting the views of the public. And a social attitude survey is an extremely important vehicle for doing that.
It really is an irreplaceable resource, very valuable and very well respected by people in politics, in government and in the media.